Hey everyone, I'm Clayfect, and today we are going to make baby/child Sally from Nightmare Before Christmas. You see, about a year ago I made baby Jack, and I think he turned out super cute sitting on a swing. But what is Jack without Sally? Though we are not just going to make any Sally, no, we are going to make Zero sitting on Sally that sits on a Halloween pumpkin. So without further ado, let's get started.
He took 100 pounds of clay, and then he said, hey listen, I'm gonna fix this world today, because I know what's missing.
Now, we are not going to need the wire just yet, because we are going to start with the pumpkin. Now, even though I usually prefer to make the hardest part first, this was actually the easiest part of the sculpture. But I needed the pumpkin in order to have a place to put Sally when I started sculpting her. This is by far the most difficult sculpture I've ever made, simply because I am not that adept in making faces. But I think I somehow, somewhat managed to make something that could look sort of decent. In order to make my pumpkin, I used my dentist tool to make some deep lines, only to go back and make some less deep lines I then smoothed out with my rubber shaper tool, all in order to give this Tim Burton style texture. Before I could get started on carving our pumpkin, making it a jack-o'-lantern, I think. I don't know, I'm from Denmark, so I have never carved a pumpkin in my life actually. But I must admit, I found it rather fun. And I do love the expression that I managed to carve out of our little fella here. Even though I am not an expert on Tim Burton, I think I hit the mark with this one. Come to think of it, I think we should have more jack-o'-lanterns here in Denmark. I mean, I know Halloween is sort of still a new celebration for us. We celebrated what we call fastelavn, where you are beating a cat out of a barrel, and it's very weird. But that's in February. And since our October is so doomy and gloomy with all that fall going on and the winter pressing on, maybe a few jack-o'-lanterns would help. Maybe I should start a procession. What do you think, guys? Yay eller nay til jack-o'-lanterns? But I'm getting sidetracked again, aren't I? Anyway, with the jack-o'-lantern done, it's time for the oven so we can cover him up and not see him again before we are basically done with the sculpture. So I hope you like the face, because you're only going to see it way later in the video. The reason I am covering him up is because I want him and Sally to be able to separate, making it a lot easier on myself when it's time for the painting. For now though, all we need is to plug in a stick for the jack-o'-lantern before we plug Sally onto the stick. Now, the scary pumpkin face is going to be at the back of the sculpture, simply because I don't want Sally's legs to cover the face first off. And I always think that the back of the sculpture is so boring. So in order to remedy that, that is why I made the pumpkin face. Plus, you know, I wanted to. But enough about my majestic pumpkin. Let's move on to the main character, Sally, where I am finally done with the armature and are starting to put some clay on her. Now for me, Sally is this kind and gentle monster doll lady, so I want that to shine through when I'm making her as a child. Speaking of making her as a child, that was a challenge in herself, because all the parts of her just scream woman. If you look at the dress, if you look at the way her body is enhanced, or if you even look at the hair, it all screams a mature woman. So I'm going to remedy that, starting with the legs, or the feet to be more precise, because even though I have no idea on how Sally's feet actually look, I made a qualified guess and gave her bare feet, all in order to make her look more like a child. It is actually quite funny, because me and Mr. Clayfect again managed to get into a debate about this movie, The Nightmare Before Christmas. When I told him that I actually saw the hero role more filled out by Sally than by Jack. And you know, I get it. Jack is the main character and Jack is definitely a catalyst in the movie. But in my opinion, that doesn't make a hero. And it's not because I want to scream girl power that I disagree with my husband. But every time Jack has a problem, like sewing the Santa suit or saving Santa, Sally is there. And while Jack is trying to just fix his own mistake, Sally is trying to help the love of her life. Now, what is more hero-like? In my opinion, it has to be Sally. Leave a comment what you think while I'm wrapping a thin layer of cosclay around Sally, making her dress. Or the start of Sally's dress, at least. We're going to come back to that later. Because after I blended the cosclay seams in, so to speak, I actually start working with another thin layer of cosclay. Though this is not for Sally's dress, but actually for Zero's body. When I work at characters that have been already created and it is not my own creation, I always look at a lot of reference photos. So in order to make Sally and to make Zero, I looked at a lot of different pictures, let me tell ya. And I have always found Tim Burton's character to be very easy and very difficult at the same time. Now let me explain. I have always found that there is a quick trick, a quick hack on how to make the characters. And if you guess that hack correctly, then you can make something that is very close to the original character. There is this sort of simplicity to them, but then again, if you can't guess the technique and hack they have been using, then you're really in for trouble because of the simplicity of these sculptures. Which is why I found Zero and Jack so easy to recreate, compared to Sally that really was a nightmare when it came to her head. But back to Zero. As you saw, I pressed Zero's big body into Sally, so I knew where to place him later on. And also had a crevice so I could secure him with some super glue, giving the illusion that he's actually hovering a bit over Sally's lap, emphasizing the dog's ghostness, you can say. But after I was done assembling Puppy Zero, it was off to the oven with him and off to Sally's head with us. Now, as I before mentioned, I did have my troubles with the head before I got it to a somewhat decent state, and the biggest problem was actually the eyes and the nose. Now, I would love to tell you what I did wrong, so you don't have to sculpt and microsculpt things in order for them to look sort of decent. But the truth of the matter is that I am not that experienced an artist, so I can't tell you what I did wrong and what I did right here. I will let you be the judge of that. So while I try to make this head look sort of Sally-ish, instead of telling you something useful, why don't I tell you why I think Sally is an awesome hero? You see, in my opinion, there is two types of people. There are the if people and there are the when people. Like, take me for example. I am a when person. I will be there for Mr. Clayfect when it goes wrong, and because I have anticipated it's going to go wrong, I have a plan A, B, C and D, which is practical, I guess, but not very encouraging. Now, for that we have the if people. They are sturdy and secure enough to think on their feet and help you with your problem if there's a problem. And for me being a when person, an if person is awesome in my opinion and vital. And for me, Sally is really an if person waiting and hoping for Jack to realize his own mistakes and are there if they're going to go wrong, which they do. And I do find it funny that Mr. Clayfect of all people disagrees with me, because he's like the most iffiest person if something goes wrong, which of course never happens to me. But then again, only in my opinion of course, I think it's necessary to have both sides, the negative and the positive, the if and the when, so to speak. And I think that is why me and my husband is such an awesome pair. But I think I've blubbered on long enough about my relationship. Let's get back to the sculpture, where I have put her head in a timeout while I continue to sculpt her body and make her dress. I don't know why, but I've always found it oddly satisfying to make clothes. So even though I'm playing around with some thin strips of cosclay and a tweezer, as you can see, I am enjoying myself immensely and having fun. Now, right from the start, I knew I couldn't copy Sally's dress completely, simply because, like I said, that dress really emphasizes the womanly curves she has, and this dress doesn't, because she doesn't have the curves yet. So I have to redesign her dress and still hope that I could make it look Sally-ish enough. So yeah, it was yet another challenge with the sculpture, though I shouldn't complain because I actually really had fun with this part. I enjoyed making the dress. You know what I didn't enjoy though? If you have followed me for a while, you can probably guess. I didn't enjoy painting the dress, but we're going to get to that later. Right now, we are doing something that I just think made all the difference and really made Sally's child body look like Sally's child body. And that was all the crevices that I sewn together after I brought them in. It took some time, but it was really worth it. To make sure that the sculpture wasn't going to be too clumpy and you could difference between her skin and the dress, I only sewn together her body parts. And with the dress, I just hinted at the seams with my dentist tool. But with that done, it was on to the oven, along with some very tiny eyelashes I made. You can see I'm stroking them with some cosclay oven adhesive with a number 0 pencil. That's how small they were. But while all that was breaking, I yet again turned my sight to the face, where I tried to give her some hair. Now, instead of her signature long flowy hair, I decided to give her pigtails. And I do know some Sally fans is probably going to wink their nose at this. Lord knows Paintfect did, but I think it adds to the childness of her and was necessary. Plus, I stuck to her signature eyelashes. That gotta count for something. I mean, do you guys have any idea how difficult those eyelashes were? They were a nightmare. I wish I had fit enough wire so I could just bend some, but I hadn't, so I had to go the tough route with cosclay. And now I can say it is possible, but it is also very difficult. But with the eyelashes finally on, I could move on to work on detailing the face and the hair, sewing her mouth shut, before I could start working on the pigtails. And while I do that, this might be a good time to ask you to like, comment and subscribe if you like what I do. A like really goes a long way in showing YouTube that I'm worth watching. Subscribe because I want you to be part of this community. The more the merrier. And comment, well, because I love reading what you think about my work. And of course, thank you to all who have subscribed and comments. It really means a lot to me, guys. Also, remember there's a contest in my community tab. Go check that out. Though not before we are done with our little Sally here, where I make some tiny hairbands only to completely lose my marbles and start making small skulls as decoration, only to torture myself some more. But with that done, all she needed was a little bit of clay softener before it was off to the oven with her, and we could finally unwrap our jack-o'-lantern and put it all together for now. Though not permanent yet, because we still had a lot of painting to do. Wow, you can just see how enthusiastic I am with my hands movement. Anyway, the very first thing I did was giving all the crevices of the dress and her scars a dark wash to make sure they were going to stand out. I put the base coat down on all 3 parts of the sculpture, but for your convenience sake, I am going to show you how I painted them one by one, starting with Sally and her dress. Now, if you think Sally's skin color is a bit too blue and she looks a bit like a Smurf or an Asawi if you ever have played Mass Effect, then you are completely right, and that is why I'm changing it to a more grayish tone before I continue on working on each pattern on the dress. Now, in order of not losing sight on where I am and where I need to be, I paint this figure section by section, finishing her right arm before I move to the left arm. Or the left arm before I move to the right. You're right, I'm left. I don't know. I'm putting some paint on the arms and sleeves. And I never thought I should say this, but I'm actually thanking my lucky stars that I had painted the sock snatcher. So I did have the stamina and knowledge to make this sort of Sally-ish pattern dress. But with the dress finally done, all I had to do was go in with a brownish reddish color for the hair before I dry brushed the hair with a brighter red, all in order to give it some more dimension, before I moved on to paint all the small details. Now, with her mouth and her eyelashes, I actually end up repainting them later on in more dulled down colors, making her look less like a Spanish señorita and more like a dead doll monster. Now for the pupils, I place them so she looks to the side, so she can look at Jack. And that's pretty much it for her, and it's onto the pumpkin. Now after I painted the inside yellow and the outside orange, I give our little jack-o'-lantern a speed paint of orange to make its texture pop as much as possible. That is also why I'm dry brushing it afterwards. Now, while I was about done with it, I suddenly decided that it needed to glow in the dark. So I also gave the inside of the mouth and the eyes a bajillion layer of glow paint before I start working on our little puppy Zero. Now, I would love to take the honor of making that nose. That cute little nose. I am very proud of it, but it's actually not me. I couldn't see that small, so that was Mr. Clayfect. Though it was me giving Zero a million layers of glow-in-the-dark paint because of course he needed to glow too. But with that part being the last one that needed paint, we could finally start assembling this sculpture with some super glue. And even though I had tested and retested if Zero fit under Sally's hands, I was still nervous, so I was so happy when it finally came together and it just looked great in my opinion. But with Sally's butt now safe and secure on the pumpkin, I think that is it for this sculpture, but not quite it for this video yet. Because after Sally is done twirling around, so to speak, I have something very special to show ya. Though that doesn't mean that we can appreciate my sculpture, because I am actually very happy with how she turned out, even though she was very difficult. I think it was the right move going with the glow-in-the-dark paints. I just love the effect that it has when the lights are off. Not to say that I don't like her with lights on. I like Sally. She is a good sculptor and I am very happy with her, given what level that I'm at. But with that, guys, let's move over to what I wanted to show ya. And that is some awesome sculptures from our community members, Neon and Sunny. And I have to say, I think Sunny and Neon's artwork looks amazing. I can't fathom how they can sculpt so tiny. And don't even get me started on the goils. Yeah, they are called goils. And I just think these creatures are super cute. So thank you so much, Sunny and Neon, for sharing this with us. It really means a lot to us. And remember, guys, if you have a sculpture that you want to share, then please feel free to do so, no matter the skill level that you're at. You can send me a PM on my Facebook site, Clayfect, with your sculpture. And with that, guys, it is time for me to sign off. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time. But if you can't wait until next time, why not click on the square to the right, where you're going to see little Jack get made. But until then, bye!